How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? This is my 1997 BMW 328i. This is going to be more of a story time kind of video. I tried to film buying the car, but I didn't want to film the guy, and I'm still new to all this, and this is going to be like the first video I actually have sitting down talking to the camera, so this is going to be weird too. Couldn't imagine actually trying to film some stranger while buying a car, while doing all the things that we did to actually get the car home. As you can see in the clips right now, the car isn't too terribly awful. I mean, it's got a clean title, it's got 195,000 miles on it. Paint's a little rough, but the body is pretty straight. The interior is rough too, but I mean, it's a project car, so I can't really be mad about it. All the interior parts work except for the sunroof, because as you can see right here, it's gone. The panel for it's not there. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and break down what had happened that day whenever we went and got it. Start things off, I messaged the guy a couple days before, and he had not replied very much. He's extremely slow at replying, actually. Either way, I was gonna go by the bank and try to see if I could get a loan out, because I knew I wanted to get one of these cars no matter what, but I didn't want to pay over a certain amount for it. So went to the bank, took out a $3,500 loan. Thankfully I actually got approved for it. I'm gonna play a clip maybe right here. Alright guys, just a little update. We was able to actually get the money. I picked up the homie and we are basically almost there. So I went by the bank. And gosh, shut the f up. So I went by the bank and the loan officer wasn't there, so I was like, well, this isn't gonna go well. So I gave him all my information and I went home, and they were supposed to have called me, but they didn't. Waited a couple hours. The guy with the BMW actually ended up messaging me. I was like, shit, I gotta hop on this. He said I could come look at it today. So I went back by the bank, got a proof of the loan. Blew my mind. Either way, so went and picked up the homie, and it was a 2.5 hour drive. Do not know why in the right mind I tried to do this, because that is a far ass drive to go look at a car that had no description in it at all, but we full sent it anyways. 2.5 hours later, we get there and pull up at I guess you could say it was more of a junkyard, or just a place where cars are parked, or maybe repoed, because there was like a lot of cars there, but they didn't see, a lot of them seemed like they was okay, or just parked cars. But this one was parked out front, so you could tell it was a little bit of the nicer one they had in a lot. The original guy that made the post about the car was actually just selling the car for his uncle. No, he wasn't selling it himself, so that was already kind of a red flag, because he started talking, I started asking questions about it, and he was like, I don't know, man, like, you know, the dude didn't know anything about the car. So I tried to start looking at it more and, you know, try to figure out some stuff about it, but where the car had been sitting for so long, the car didn't want to start. And then the actual owner of the car, which is also the person that owned the junkyard itself, came by. He finally came, and I started talking to him about the car. He got the car to turn on, and like, it didn't want to turn on at first because it did have old gas in it, so you had to rev the piss out of it. And I also think after owning it, it was actually one of the intake hoses. Either way, he got it going, and he took it for a test drive while we was riding in the passenger seat, and it seemed to run good. Everything was running good. It's just like where that old gas was in it, it didn't want to get going. But the first red flag came up when he was driving it. It started to get hot, but that was because the coolant level was pretty low prior to driving. I saw it before we actually went on the road, but I was trying to get the car started, and he got the car started and was like, yeah man, it drives good, and he just took us off on the road. It wasn't ready for that, but it turns out a common issue with these cars is the OEM thermostat housing is made of plastic or something like that, and it ended up being cracked, and he had the part replace it, but the guy that actually posted it did not tell him that I was coming to look at the car until 30 minutes before. He had the thermostat housing to replace it, so he started to replace it there at his place, and it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. It was a little bit of a hassle to get off, but like eventually he was able to do it. but he had to get a new thermostat for it too. He's gonna go ahead and replace that for me since, you know, he wanted the car to be in good condition. The guy was, the actual owner of the car was really respectable, he was really nice, he was really cool. But the guy that posted the car was the one to go get the thermostat housing. This guy took at least like an hour to 2 hours going to O'Reilly's that's like 20 minutes down the road. I don't know what he was doing, but it was ridiculous. And whenever the dude got back, he finally had the thermostat housing. He was supposed to have something else, but he didn't have that. I think he was a little, you know, but that's just me. So eventually we got the car back running again. We thought we bled the coolant system right. We put coolant in it, we filled it up, and with any other car, you just run the coolant system, put the coolant in it, let it kind of bleed itself. But this car is completely new to me, and it was completely new to my buddy that went along with me. And I thought the guy that was selling it kind of knew a little bit more than what he did, but I don't think he's actually properly bled one of these systems before. But either way, we took the car, we drove it one time, and it drove fine. It drove like it was supposed to. It got hot, but the thermostat gauge dropped back down, so I was like, oh, it's just, like, you know, the thermostat might have hung up or something. I was wrong. After we drove it that first time, we went through and I paid for it, and I got the title signed over in my name, and, you know, I thought it was all good. Well, turns out we left, drove barely a mile down the road. The heat gauge was redlining. It was spewing coolant out of the radiator. It was bad. I don't have clips of it spewing, but it turns out the only issue that the car had was we didn't bleed it right. There is a freaking plastic Phillips head screw bit on the radiator, and all we had to do was crack it open and let the air out. That was it. It was like the dumbest mistake, almost blowing up a car at a spot. We got that figured out. That took another couple hours. So to put it in perspective, we were there at this guy's place for about 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours, just looking at the car, trying to get the car. And we spent another hour and a half trying to get the car just running, because I had to call my buddy Jonathan. If you're watching this, Jonathan, major shout out to you, because you're the only reason I actually got this thing home. Drove it 160 miles home, 2.5 hours, and she drove like a champ. So what's the plan for the car? Why did I get it? What's the whole point of getting it? I'm going to start off with breaking down what's wrong with it. Driving the car home, it drove pretty good, but it turns out a fuse was out on the interior light, so I had to use flashlight on my phone just to see the gauges so I know how fast I was going. And it turns out it was just a fuse blown, and I replaced that fuse and it was no problem. The fuse was already in the fuse box, so I didn't have to pay anything for that. But it turns out there's two somewhat major issues with the car. One, intake hoses are bad. The elbow and the ICV hose is completely busted. And these clips right here are the ones I just showed. You can see I had to duct tape it, and that was just so I could drive it today. I have all the parts ordered to get it fixed. It's just I'm waiting on it, so I had to have it fixed for a day. The other major issue is the tie rods are out, and one of the sides, the ball joints are out. And according to my buddy Jonathan, it is a bitch of a job to replace these because something with the lollipops, I don't know. I haven't messed with it yet, but we're about to figure it out in the next couple videos. So as I was in the process of making this video, I was installing the head unit off camera because I got the radio harness and I didn't think it'd be too big of a deal to install it. So after installing the head unit, I was just out here, you know, jamming to music as you do when you install a new head unit, and the car decided to overheat. The reason being is the fan itself snapped. I don't know if you can see it too well, but there's 3 fan fins that just completely snapped off. What ended up happening was this coolant hose right here is tucked up at the top of the radiator, and it fell down somehow. It's held up over here now, but it was loose over there. It fell down and it bound up the fan itself, and it wedged it against the radiator, and it snapped like 3 of them. And the car started to overheat. It didn't redline or anything. The fact that it even overheated in the first place is absolutely ridiculous. I ended up having to order a new fan and a new fan clutch, and that was an extra $100. But why did I buy the car? So the whole point of me buying this car is because if you've been following my channel at least a little bit, you will know I'm turboing the Miata, and as of right now, the Miata is my daily. As I'm doing these modifications to it, like the car has to be down for a couple days at a time. I try to like get things done as fast as I can, but that affects the video quality. I want the quality of the videos to be good, but I can't do that. So I needed a daily, but I've also really wanted the E36 because I absolutely love the way these cars look. They're the best body style I think that BMW has, essentially I just needed a daily, and I wanted it to be a car that I wanted to have for a long time, not just some, like, I could have cheaped out and got a Civic, but I don't want to drive a damn Civic, like, come on. So that leads to, what is the plan for the car? Well, it's just going to be a daily, but I do want to end up building this thing up. I want to get it repainted, and I would like to make it like a stance build or something like that. But I mean, everybody says that about a freaking BMW. I don't want to make like assumptions and say things that I'm not going to actually do, but I do want this car to be very clean, and I will make it to that point one day, and I'm putting it out here. You guys got to hold me accountable for it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything you need to know about this car. I got a lot of plans for it. Kind of up in the air what I'm going to do with the car. I'm going to keep you guys updated for sure. But let me know in the comments if you actually enjoyed like the talking videos. This is the first time I've actually tried doing it like this. A little bit different, and I didn't really work on anything. But I just wanted to explain to you guys what had happened. I will see you guys in the next video.